Welcome, take a deep breath in and exhale. You are here now, and that's all that matters. You've carried enough. The weight of guilt, the shadow of fear, it's been heavy. It's been long. But now, in this space, in this moment, you choose. You choose to heal, body calm and grounded, with slow, intentional pauses. You see, healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering that you were never broken in the first place. Guilt whispers, you should have done more. You should have known. You are not enough. But guilt is a story. Not truth, not destiny. A story that you've outgrown. Fear is just the echo of old wounds. Wounds that no longer serve you. You don't need to silence fear. You only need to face it. And today, with breath, with presence, you do. Healing begins when you forgive yourself, not when you fix the past. This simple truth carries a profound depth that most of us overlook in our pursuit of peace. So often, we imagine healing as a destination reached only after we've corrected every mistake, tied up every loose end, and ensured that every past wrong has been righted. But the reality is, the past cannot be changed. It can't be edited, reversed, or undone. What happened, happened. And no matter how deeply we wish we could go back and choose differently, we're always left with the same truth. All we have is this moment. The pain comes from resisting that truth. We believe that peace lies on the other side of regret, when in fact peace lives on the other side of self-forgiveness. There's a deep human tendency to revisit our mistakes, almost obsessively, playing them over in our minds like broken records. We relive conversations, decisions, and moments with the belief that if we just think about them hard enough, we'll somehow resolve them. But healing doesn't happen through rumination. Healing begins when we say to ourselves, I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. It begins when we stop expecting the old version of ourselves to live up to the wisdom we've only recently gained. We grow, we change, we evolve, and expecting your past self to act with today's awareness is not only unfair, it's impossible. Self-forgiveness isn't letting yourself off the hook. It's acknowledging that you are human. You have been shaped by 1,000 experiences, both good and bad, and you've made choices from the emotional, mental, and spiritual capacity you had in that exact moment. Sometimes you acted out of fear, sometimes out of ignorance, sometimes out of pain, and still, those actions do not define the totality of who you are. When you hold yourself hostage to guilt, you cut yourself off from your capacity to grow. You delay healing, not because you're incapable, but because you're convinced that healing requires punishment first. But it doesn't. It requires love. You can't punish yourself into wholeness. You can't shame yourself into clarity. What heals you is compassion, radical, honest, non-judgmental compassion for who you were, what you didn't know, and how far you've come since. So much of what we carry, these heavy burdens of guilt, of should-haves, of if-onlys, are based on the illusion that somehow we could have done better if we had just tried harder. But trying isn't the issue, knowing is, and you didn't know then what you know now. You may have thought you were doing what was right, or maybe you were acting from a place of protection, reacting to wounds that hadn't yet healed. That's not weakness, that's being human. When you forgive yourself, you are not denying that mistakes happened. You are simply choosing not to be defined by them. You are choosing to reclaim your narrative from the grip of shame. And it's in that choice that healing begins to unfold, because guilt can only live where love has been pushed aside. When love returns self, love, self-respect, self-understanding. Guilt has nowhere left to hide. It dissolves not because the past has changed, but because your relationship to the past has. So many people chase healing as a form of control. They believe that if they can just understand the past enough, dissect it enough, hold it under a microscope long enough, then maybe they'll feel free. But you don't heal by control. You heal by surrender, not surrender to the pain, but surrender to the reality that the past is over. What's left now is you, and your choice to meet yourself with grace, or continue to punish yourself with guilt. The truth is, guilt can become addictive. It feels righteous. It feels responsible. But beneath that surface lies a subtle belief that you're undeserving of peace until you've suffered enough. That is not healing. That is self-imposed imprisonment. Forgiveness says, I trust myself now. I see my pain, but I choose to love myself anyway. That choice doesn't excuse harm done. It doesn't remove accountability. It just means that you no longer see yourself only through the lens of your worst moment. You're more than that moment. You are the total of your intentions, your efforts, your growth, your ability to reflect and change. When you begin to truly forgive yourself, you stop viewing healing as something you must earn. It becomes something you allow. There's a peace that only comes from letting go not of responsibility, but of the need to constantly prove your worthiness to yourself. You don't need to perform healing. You don't need to explain it to others or validate it through perfection. You simply need to choose it, and that choice can be quiet. It can be internal. It can be made in the smallest of moments, when you look in the mirror and decide to soften instead of criticize. When you hear the voice of guilt rising and you answer it with kindness instead of shame, those moments are healing. Not loud, not dramatic, but powerful. Forgiving yourself means holding space for the parts of you that were scared, confused, or simply unaware. It means becoming the parent, the friend, the guide that part of you needed back then. And the more you do that, the more you heal, not just the past, but the present. Because guilt doesn't only live in memory, it seeps into today. It shows up in the way you talk to yourself, the way you hold back your joy, the way you sabotage your peace. When you forgive, you begin to live differently. You open space for joy to return. You remember that you're allowed to feel good, even if your past wasn't perfect. Especially because your past wasn't perfect. Healing is not a reward for perfect behavior. It's the natural state that returns when you release what's keeping it away. And guilt left unchecked keeps it away. Fear of the past, obsession with what should have been, mistrust in yourself, these all hold healing at a distance. Self-forgiveness is what closes that gap. It brings you back to yourself, to your own heart, to the deep, quiet truth that you are worthy now, not someday, not when you're better, not when you've made up for everything. Now you've always been. You're not the mistake. You're the awareness that grew from it. You're not the failure. You're the resilience that followed. You're not the pain. You're the presence that can hold that pain with grace. And once you begin to see yourself that way, something shifts. You stop needing to outrun your past and you begin to integrate it. You stop fearing the voice of guilt and you start answering it with wisdom because you've lived, you've learned. And now you choose to heal not by rewriting what happened, but by rewriting how you hold it. Letting go of fear is choosing presence over prediction. Fear is almost never about what's happening right now. It's about what might happen, what could go wrong, what the future may bring that you won't be ready for. It's a forecast, not a fact, and yet it feels so real, so immediate, that it convinces you to act as if the worst is already true. Fear doesn't ask you to pay attention to what is. It demands you prepare for what isn't. And in doing so, it steals your presence, your peace, and your ability to simply exist where life is actually unfolding. Here, in this moment. The mind loves to anticipate. It's wired to assess danger, to calculate risk, to scan for threats before they arrive. That instinct once kept our ancestors alive, but in modern life, fear rarely comes from physical danger. It comes from imagined outcomes, uncertain conversations, the unknown road ahead. You worry about losing what you love, failing where you hope, being hurt by what hasn't even touched you. It becomes a pattern, a reflex. You look forward, see a shadow, and react as if it's already fallen. And in that reaction, you lose the present moment. You miss the sunrise while bracing for a storm that may never come. When you choose presence, you are not ignoring the future. You are simply refusing to live inside of it before it arrives. Presence is not denial, it's clarity. It says, I don't need to solve what hasn't happened yet. I only need to meet what's here. That decision sounds simple, but it takes courage. Because fear feels like responsibility. Fear feels like control. You believe that by predicting what could go wrong, you are somehow preventing it. But most of the time, fear is not prevention, it's paralysis. You don't move forward more safely. You stop moving altogether. There's a strange comfort in fear. It gives you something to hold on to. When everything feels uncertain, fear gives you a script, a structure, a focus. It may be painful, but at least it's familiar. Presence, by contrast, requires surrender. It asks you to let go of the script, to meet the moment as it is, without preparation, without assumptions. That can feel raw, it can feel vulnerable, but it's in that vulnerability that true strength is found. Because when you're present, you're not pretending to be ready. You are ready. You're connected to your instincts, your breath, your inner clarity. You don't need to rely on hypothetical scenarios when you're fully anchored in what's actually happening. Most fear is based on a story. It begins with what if and ends with suffering. What if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if everything falls apart? But fear never finishes that sentence honestly. It doesn't say, what if I fail and then learn something essential? Or, what if I'm rejected and it leads me to something better? Or, what if things fall apart and I finally grow into who I'm meant to be? Fear always ends with the worst case scenario. Presence ends with truth, and the truth is, right now, you are breathing, you are alive, you are safe in this exact moment. Everything else is projection. Every imagined future is just that imagined. That doesn't mean the future doesn't matter. It means you can't live in it. You can only shape it by how you show up now. Fear says, brace yourself. Presence says, be yourself. One creates tension. The other invites stillness. To let go of fear, you must first notice it, not judge it, not fight it. Just see it for what it is, an alert system, a pattern of protection. It is not your enemy, it's just outdated. You thank it, and then you guide yourself back to now, this breath, this heartbeat, this place where life is actually happening. You don't need to wait for fear to go away before choosing presence. You can carry fear with you without giving it the wheel. You can feel the fear and still choose to stay grounded. It's important to recognize how fear disguises itself. Sometimes it shows up as overthinking. Sometimes it's indecision. Sometimes it's perfectionism or avoidance. It says, wait until you're ready. Wait until you're certain. Wait until there's no risk. But presence says, you're already ready enough to begin. You're already capable of handling what unfolds. You don't need certainty. You need trust. That trust is not in the future being perfect. It's in your ability to meet it with presence, whatever it brings. Presence isn't about forcing stillness or faking peace. It's about returning to yourself. It's about noticing when your mind has left the room, wandered into the future, and gently calling it back. That's the practice, not to eliminate fear, but to outgrow your reliance on it, to choose again and again to be here, rather than live inside a story about what might be. And the more you practice presence, the less power fear holds, not because the future is guaranteed, but because you no longer need it to be. Letting go of fear doesn't mean ignoring danger. It means releasing the illusion that worrying about it keeps you safe. It means stepping out of the loop of anticipation and into the flow of awareness. It means asking yourself, is this fear based on what's real or what I'm imagining? And then choosing to act based on what is, rather than what might be. Fear limits your vision. It narrows your view until all you see are threats. But presence widens the lens. It reminds you of what's still working, what's still beautiful, what's still true. It gives you access to joy, connection, intuition, all of which are impossible to feel when you're lost in worry. Presence doesn't promise ease, but it offers something better, alignment. When you are aligned, you don't need every answer. You trust yourself to respond rather than react, to breathe rather than brace. Choosing presence over prediction is a radical act in a world obsessed with control. It's choosing to live rather than just prepare to live. It's choosing to experience this moment fully rather than miss it while rehearsing the next. And that choice repeated in quiet, small moments is what breaks fear's grip, not through force but through returning. Again and again you return to now, not because fear is gone, but because it's no longer the voice you follow. You no longer ask it for truth. You ask your breath, your body, your being. You ask what is actually real. And what's real always is this moment. Healing is not something that arrives all at once like a lightning bolt or a dramatic breakthrough. It's something you return to moment by moment, choice by choice. It lives not in the distance, but in the present. It's not something to chase in the future or earn through suffering. It's already within you, waiting to be allowed, not achieved. Everything you've carried, guilt, fear, shame has been asking for one thing all along, your attention. Not your punishment, not your perfection, just your presence, just your willingness to meet yourself without the heavy expectation to be anything other than human. We spend so much time waiting for things to feel right, waiting to be ready, waiting for the pain to subside before we choose peace. But peace doesn't wait. It's not somewhere outside of you. It's the breath you're taking now. It's the space between thoughts. It's the stillness that remains even when everything feels chaotic. You don't need to change your life before you start healing. You begin healing the moment you stop running from yourself. You begin healing when you stop asking the past to be different and start asking yourself what you need now. And that need is almost always the same: presence, compassion, and permission to feel. Letting go of guilt doesn't mean forgetting what's happened. It means no longer using the past as a weapon against yourself. It means recognizing that mistakes are part of the journey, not the disqualification from joy. Guilt served its purpose. It helped you see. It helped you grow. But it's not meant to live inside you forever. It's not meant to become your identity. There is a difference between learning from the past and being imprisoned by it. And only you can choose which path to walk. When you begin to forgive yourself not just intellectually, but in your body, in your heart, you open a door that guilt has kept shut for too long. You open the door to freedom. Fear, too, has been a companion, sometimes loud, sometimes silent, but always present when you've been on the edge of growth. Fear tried to protect you. It tried to keep you safe by keeping you small. But now you know that presence is the real safety. Being here with your breath, with your truth, with your awareness. This is where your power lies, not in the imagined scenarios of what might go wrong. Not in rehearsing every possible outcome before taking a single step. Power lives in showing up as you are, not as you fear you need to be. Letting go of fear is not a one-time decision, it's a practice. It's a choice you make every time your mind drifts to the unknown and you gently pull it back to now. It's what you do when you hear the voice of doubt rising, and you answer it not with panic, but with breath. With presence, you don't need to eliminate fear to be free. You only need to stop letting it lead. Fear can ride in the back seat, but it doesn't get to steer anymore. You steer with clarity, with softness, with trust in yourself, even when the road ahead is unclear. Self-healing is never about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the guilt took hold, before fear clouded your vision, before the world told you to be afraid of your own power, your own softness, your own truth. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are not too late. You are right on time, exactly where you need to be to begin. The healing you've been searching for is not in another book, another breakthrough, another person. It's in the permission you give yourself to feel, to forgive, to stay. Every time you choose presence over prediction, forgiveness over shame, softness over judgment, you are healing. Even when it doesn't look like progress, even when it's quiet, especially then, healing is subtle. It's choosing to respond instead of react. It's speaking to yourself with kindness in the mirror. It's taking a breath before you spiral. It's allowing tears to fall without trying to explain them. These small choices are the fabric of your healing. They don't need to be loud. They only need to be yours. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is rest, to stop striving, to stop fixing, to stop trying to prove that you're worthy of your own peace. You already are. Healing doesn't mean you'll never feel guilt again or never know fear again. It means those feelings no longer control the way you live. They may visit, but they don't move in. You learn to sit with them without giving them the final say. You learn that your emotions are not threats, they're messengers. And when you stop running from them, you discover they have so much less power than you feared. You are the healer you've been waiting for. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've finally stopped asking others to tell you who you are. You've decided to listen to yourself, to trust yourself, to hold your heart like you would a friend's, not as a problem to solve, but as something sacred. You become your own safe place, and that safety, that internal sanctuary, is where real healing begins to unfold. So let yourself be here in this breath, in this body, in this exact version of yourself, without needing to perform healing or perfect it or prove it. Let yourself be whole, not because everything is fixed, but because nothing ever needed to be. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to release the stories that keep you stuck. You are allowed to be free. And when you forget, because you will when you drift back into guilt, When fear starts to speak louder, when you find yourself trying to control it all again, remember this. You don't have to start over. You just have to return. Return to your breath. Return to your body. Return to this moment. Return to your truth. Again and again and again, because this is your healing, not borrowed, not given, not earned, yours. Always within reach, always waiting for your return, always ready to begin again.